A rare gimmick in the Yu-Gi-Oh anime is when a monster from a card comes to life or gets physically represented as a duelist and they summon themselves. It's almost something you'd expect since they wear their theme on their sleeve and the rest of their body. So for this video, I want to go over the notable but seldom seen times a monster dueled in the Yu-Gi-Oh anime and committed to the bit by summoning their own card. Now this primarily happened in GX with sprinkles in the original anime and Zexal, so the entries will be from those three series. I'll mainly be ranking them on entertainment value, creativity with the summon, and how they acted when they were on the field. I'll count any duelists who were dual spirits, which are the literal manifestations of the cards as living beings, and virtual versions of the monsters for episodes that took place in cyber worlds. Now, let's welcome the top 10 Yu-Gi-Oh monsters that summoned themselves in the anime. Number 10, Kuriboh. Starting off the list with a few unconventional summons. The virtual world arc had the concept of deck masters, where you choose a monster to stand by your side, and it has an outside effect that you can use throughout the duel. You can also move your deck master onto the field if you need an extra monster, but if your deck master is destroyed, you auto-lose the duel. The protagonists had to choose a monster, while the enemy Big Five take the form of their deck master monsters. When Yugi was going to choose his deck master in the first duel, Kuriboh says, "Hey, look at me, I'm on the card," and just emerges because it wants to be the deck master. Regardless of if Yugi misclicked at the reaction or if this was all Kuriboh's doing is ambiguous, but now Yugi was stuck with Kuriboh as the deck master. Why did Kuriboh just say hi all of a sudden? No other cards moved like that. Were they hell-bent on getting Kuriboh as a mascot for the duel, so they invented a way for him to shoehorn himself in there? Or were they just testing the waters for what winged Kuriboh would eventually do? This Kuriboh though is in super mascot mode for this duel, as it's dancing and nuzzling and trying to look angry. It does officially take the field when it uses its damage prevention deckmaster ability, so you can also count that as a subset of summoning itself. But regardless of if you do count that, it wouldn't be in this position in the first place if it didn't decide to butt in as the deckmaster. And to note, Yugi does not say anything like, "Kuriboh, activate your deckmaster ability." Kuriboh just instinctually does the multiply thing when he sees the attack coming, so I'm also considering that as Kuriboh voluntarily summoning itself. Oh, and this is the duel where we got to see Rainbow Bridge Kuriboh, which is just another point in its favor. Number 9, the Number Guardians. The numbers in Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal are Xyz monsters formed from the series villain breaking apart the spaceman Astral and scattering his memories across the universe. The cards tended to possess people and gain their forms based on who they were possessing, so it was a collectathon to get them all back to Astral, featuring the main character Yuma. But one subset of these monsters were the Number Guardians. In the second half of the series, we learned some ancient leaders from the world known as Barian were reincarnated under the control of the main villain, and to unlock their memories or power from their modern-day reincarnations, someone related to their past life was brought back each as a number monster. So I'm pairing these Number Guardians together in a single entry, since they all serve similar purposes with decks that mainly turboed out their Xyz forms and ultimately lost to unlock their related person's true Barian form. To go through all of them that dueled, there was Mach, who was the noble steed of Dolbe, or Dumon in the dub, in his old life, and he was number 44 Sky Pegasus. His effect makes it where you can destroy one of your opponent's monsters, or make them pay 1000 life points for them not to be destroyed, which was always a weak effect in real life, but the anime made it seem cooler. Also, I can't emphasize this enough, but this man used to be a horse. Next we have Ponta, who's most memorable to me since he's the raccoon buddy of Gimmick, which is wholesome since they have that big guy, little guy duo energy. He also possesses Gimmick to duel Yuma, and they have little raccoon noses now. Look at him! His monster is number 64 Ronin Raccoon Sendayu, and he can summon a raccoon token with attack equal to the highest attack monster on the field. I was never sure if Ponta was the samurai or the token in this case, but regardless, raccoon deck, it's so cute. Then there was Jinlan, who was the partner guardian dragon of Mizar in the past, and he's a cool old guy now whose spirit is in number 46 Dragluon. His duel against Kaito had a crazy back and forth in the last turn, where Kaito gets out Neo Galaxy Eye's Photon Dragon, then Kaito uses Overlay Sentinel to cut Dragluon's attack in half, and Overlay Booster to raise his dragon to 6000 attack. Next he attacks Dragluon to go for the kill, but Jinlan uses Dragon Dance to decrease Photon Dragon's attack to 0, thinking he'll now get the kill, but then Kaito activates Galaxy Dragon Maelstrom to negate Dragon Dance, and now Kaito can beat Jinlan. on. Great duel. And the final one that dueled was Abyss, who was the most significant one since he held both Rio's memories as Marin and Shark's as Nash. He was basically ocean god Poseidon in the past life who worked with both of them. And for his card, number 73 Abyss Splash, he doubles his attack until the end of the battle phase. I always assumed the monster was just Abyss in armor, which is good that he doesn't normally wear it since I like his beard. There's a couple of other guardians that didn't have a duel or did it off screen, but those are the core 4 of the number guardians that summon themselves of this bunch. Pick your favorites. Do you like Horsey Man, Raccoon, Cool Old Guy, or Beard? Number 8, Kaiba Man. It was always cool in GX when characters from the original series came back for an episode or two, which I feel is the popular consensus. Kaiba himself just got to be off to the side doing Kaiba things, like sending fan-made cards into outer space in hopes to teach aliens how to duel. It's exactly as crazy as it sounds, and we just kinda let it happen. And while he could logically come to Duel Academy Island since he owns it, Kaiba Man was his proxy, being a duel spirit for the card based on his image. Kaiba just made himself like a Sentai character, which I would love to see his design process behind. I just can't imagine him liking anything unrelated to his job or duel monsters. Does he smile at all when he watches Sentai or other tokusatsu? Kaiba Man is like Kaiba with the voice and deck and all, but he feels a bit more like if Kaiba wanted to be a heroic role model with how he uses the duel as a teaching moment for Jaden, so it's sort of out of character for him. When it comes to summoning himself, it's a bit lackluster. He does it right at the beginning of the duel to give us that meta moment, but he really just does it to get Blue Eyes on the field faster. His effect lets him tribute himself to summon the dragon, so the bigger deal was that we were getting to see an authentic Blue Eyes White Dragon deck again, meaning Kaiba Man is surprisingly modest when showing himself off. He knows the dragons are the big event, it's not his day. I feel like the funnier summon would be if Kaiba himself ever summoned Kaiba Man, since that very much fits his ego, and if you do ever want to hear that happen, Kaiba does have a vain summoning line when summoning Kaiba Man in Duel Links.
It's like looking in the mirror. Here comes Kaiba Man!
Terrific. Number 7, Robotic Knight. Another deck master, this time from the villain side. Nesbit of the Big Five and former Kaiba Corp military tech department got to live every kid's dream of being a robot when he took the form of Robotic Knight. It's a robot that's also a knight. Nothing too complex about him. He's usually a normal monster with 1600 attack, 1800 defense, though in the virtual world, his deck master effect lets him discard a machine monster to deal 500 burn damage, so that's kinda cool. In the climax of the duel, Robotic Knight takes the field, and being the first time a monster voluntarily did this, it does have this air of coolness to it, especially since Nesbit was so cold and serious. He then immediately fused with Machine King to turn into Perfect Machine King, which basically turned him into a Gundam, so it felt like an oh crap moment, even though it was just a glorified cosplay on his end. And you know, 2700 attack plus 500 per machine on the field is a big number. And even though he loses, he goes down in a cool way, clashing with St. Joan and tying, destroying both of themselves, but forced to lose due to him being the deck master. So there have been worse ways to go down. When Perfect Machine King was printed in real life, they just made him a tribute monster. So I think a retrain for old Nesbit is due someday. Make him a fusion and call him Perfectly Ultimate Machine King. He deserves it. Also yes, I know about the Monster Clockwork Knight. That's the Robotic Knight retrain. I'm looking for the Machine King fusion retrain. Let it all be complete. Number 6, number 96, Dark Mist. Number 96 was the most rogue of the number monsters, being the dark version of Astral, running around wanting to be the dominant Astral-like guy. He started off with possessing like the other numbers were doing, but then he eventually started doing duels by himself. He actually did a unique thing when we first saw his card form, where in his throwaway duel with the guy that he was possessing, he makes a fake Dark Mist with no effect to intentionally lose and get taken by Astral so he could form his evil body, and then we would see him formally summon himself. But first, he makes Yuma duel his friend Tetsuo, or Bronk in the dub, by physically puppeteering Yuma. He turbos out Dark Mist, and it's a pretty straightforward duel. His effect lets you detach an overlay unit to cut your opponent's monster's attack in half when an attack is declared, and it gains that attack that was lost. So it's a race to see if they could stop him enough after using that effect until he ran out of stuff to detach. match, and they did. His more perilous duels were when the crew entered the Baryon world in the second half of the series when he got a rank-up magic card. He has 2 duels with Astral and Yuma, and both times he plays the Maliseverus archetype. You know, the one with the silverware demons. How quirky. But he really just uses them so he can turbo himself out on the field faster. Then he does rank-up magic, not only to get out his chaos form monster Darkstorm, but he literally buffs himself, and honestly, he looked better skinny. I feel like he's wearing an inflatable suit when he buffs up. Anyway, the first duel ends with a draw and 96 retreats. The second, his chaos form clashes with Utopia's form for double destruction, but then Yuma revives Utopia since it's a scripted duel where 96 loses for good and Yuma has the right card. His last duel was also when he was stealing Yuma's number monsters, and the first one he steals is number 69, which feels like a good bit. It's the inverse of his number. Also, yes, funny number 2. I'm sure it was unintentional, but I like to think he has a bit of a sense of humor. Number 5, Dark Magician Girl. There's a Duel Spirit Festival, and the Dark Magician Girl comes down to the real world. She can get away with it since everyone thinks she's a cosplayer, so she duels Jaden as a part of the main event of the festival. I used to think it was corny how the crowd was cheering for every little move she made, but now that I'm more familiar with idol culture and seeing how streamer culture has evolved, it makes sense. Plus, IRL Dark Magician Girl sounds cool. I'm with them on this one. When it comes to summoning herself, she just does it in the middle of a bunch of other stuff, like they were trying to hide the fact that her deck is not optimized to play Dark Magician Girl. There are no Dark Magicians in her deck, so I don't know what else she's gonna do in 2005. She plays like Spellcaster Battle Protection. It's really not that important. What you need to know is that she banishes herself from the hand to then turbo herself out on the field with Dimension Fusion alongside some other monsters. So it's like, hey, I'm here now too when she comes out. It wasn't even a good way of banishing herself. She does it with Fire Sorcerer's effect, one of the worst effects in the game where you have to banish 2 random cards in your hand to deal 800 burn damage. Dark Magician Girl does get to call out Dark Burning Attack a couple of times, so that's neat, but it feels like this is just her summoning herself out of obligation for the gimmick. That being said, I still think she likes using herself since when she draws her own card, she has this look of, yes, this is my key to victory. Final note, on the eye catch, where it normally shows the opponent with a key card they were using in the duel, she is shown with another Dark Magician Girl in the background, and that's unintentionally really funny to me. It's like, you narcissist, I'm seeing double, 4 Dark Magician Girls. Number 4, Gravekeeper's Chief. Gravekeeper's Chief doesn't get enough credit for being a cool guy by the end of his duel. Being involved in one of the first archetypes, his duel felt special since he had a whole team behind him, being the Gravekeepers. We see all of his subjects in the Necro Valley area are just the guys from the cards outside the duel, with Sarah, or Yasmin in the dub, being the only one who wasn't identical to her card counterpart Gravekeeper's assailant. Chief challenges Jaden to a dark duel when the crew ends up in his domain, which just involves everyone getting mummified if he loses. You know, standard field trip stuff. As mentioned, everyone from the Gravekeeper cards were his buddies outside and inside the duel, with him summoning them as the duel went on. When it was Chief's time to shine, he summoned himself or it made him disappear and then reappear on the field in a flash of light, and he's still holding his cards and such, so he's just multitasking now. I like how he clears Jaden's field with his other monsters first, so then he can say, I'll finish you off myself, Royal Rage! His power is just red balls here. I was expecting something like a spell like Gravekeeper's Curse had, or maybe a weapon, but I guess unspecified red energy is also good. That being said, Jaden blocks the attack with a Battle Trap. The one time Jaden had Draining Shield as a good Battle Trap in his deck, he could use it. How coincidental. I also like when the duel was over, the Gravekeepers were just standing there as if there was no difference between on and off the duel. It's like they were performing a stage play. And when Jaden tells Chief that he had a lot of fun, Chief was like, you know, there were stakes to this wasn't supposed to be fun. And then Chief was just kinda chill with Jaden, which was nice. It makes Chief seem like he was a good guy once you pose no threat to him. I would have liked to see him stick around in some way, but the man has a grave to keep, so he was busy. personality. Number 3, Yugioh. A final boss summoning themselves of course sounds like it has great aura to it, so Yugioh does a few fancy maneuvers to make their self-summon feel larger than life. When it's Yugioh's time to shine, she does some negative color effect and splits into two. She doesn't even declare that she's summoning herself, she just does it. Jaden's the one that goes, "Ah, I see you summoned yourself." Well, of course, Jaden, she tributed 2 roses and then put the card on the duel disc and everything. And with Yugioh as a monster transforming into the more destructive, larger forms, we get more than just seeing double. When Yugioh destroys herself, she summons Yugioh, Terror Incarnate. Not only does this form wipe the field at the end of Yugioh's turn, but Yugioh goes for the style points and stands on top of the giant demon dragon between the 2 heads. And once that form is destroyed, we get Yugioh, the ultimate nightmare, which allows them to attack in and redirect the battle damage to the opponent. But for a super boss mode motif, Yugioh in duelist form is combined with the dragon head emerging from it at the top like Merrick on the winged dragon of Ra. In Japanese, Yugioh's voice also changes in this form, going to a deeper masculine voice. Both Japanese voices that she has sound pretty sinister, but this voice feels like a deeper hatred is taking over their mind. It really is end-time Yugioh. And then Jaden fuses with Yugioh and it's all better. You know, does that mean if Jaden summons Yugioh from this point forward that it also counts for the list, or at least like half a point? Either way, Yugioh's here to stay and we'll get a good archetype about 20 years later. Number 2, Jinzo. I love how they made Jinzo an absolute terror in his one duel in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX. Some students thought it would be cool to contact Jinzo in the duel spirit world, but he said he needed 3 tributes to become real. They thought he meant tributes in a duel, but you fools, Jinzo is only a 1 tribute monster. He wanted blood. For the guy that escaped, Jaden offers his soul as tribute instead if Jinzo beats him in a duel, so they have a duel with electrical generators keeping Jinzo alive. It's cool and stuff. Standard Shadow Game inspired rules. Jaden digitizes as he loses life points to show how his life is connected to the duel. After some ectoplasmer shenanigans, Jinzo summons himself to the field, and he does it in a cool way where he disappears, the electricity starts going crazy, and then he reappears dramatically on the field in a bolt of lightning. And to continue being cool, I like the way he calls out his attack. He's like, "I'll attack this monster myself, cyber energy shock," every time he gets to attack. Probably the swaggiest a monster duelist carried themselves on the field. However, Jinzo's time alive comes to an end when he puts on his little hat that makes him immune to his own trap negate effect, and Jaden destroys the amplifier, thereby destroying Jinzo per its effect. And instead of going back to the duelist part of the field, it actually sends him to the graveyard. He can't finish the duel normally now. Instead, he tries to possess the throwaway student and revive himself with Call of the Haunted, but Jaden once again has a staple card with Solemn Judgment that he never plays otherwise, preventing Jinzo from coming back and attacks for game. Despite the loss, Jinzo showed in this duel why he is like the coolest thing ever to us old school players. His trap negate effect wasn't even that daunting in this duel, it was just his presence, and I'll welcome the day where Jinzo in any form becomes meta again. For number 1, I went with the funniest. It's a goofy topic, so why not go with the summon that reflects it? The number 1 and only Danzalug. The Dark Scorpion episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! GX is a fan favorite for how silly it is. The Dark Scorpions are a band of thieves that were more or less portrayed as serious in the card game. They were imposing thieves who had some pretty standard weapons and had effects that tended to remove cards from the field, hand, or deck. Those effects only activate when they inflict battle damage, but to help that, they have a trap that lets them all attack directly at a reduced attack value each to get those effects off, and a spell that summons as many of them as you can from the hand as long as their boss Danzalug is on the field. That being said, it was a 2003 archetype, so the effects were limited, like making Danzalug not a Dark Scorpion, so he's not searchable with their searching effect, or making their special summon spell require them to be in the hand. However, it's not really about the effects here, it's about the anime personality. The one hint of camp on their cards is they were doing the Ginyu Force pose on the mustering of the Dark Scorpion spell, hinting how they would act in the anime. In the anime, they were dual spirits in the real world that were trying to steal the keys to unlock the sacred beasts. Danzalug pretended to be a detective that would help them hide the keys better, when in reality, he was setting them up to be stolen by the Dark Scorpions, also disguised as employees at the academy. Anyway, when they're discovered, we see their real personalities. They're competent but goofy, having a sequence that saves animation where they just answer in unison. That's how the Dark Scorpion burglars operate every time they're asked a question in the exact same pose formation. I would believe they do this, but still, it's budget friendly. And when Chaz challenges them to a duel, Zaloog is like, alright, they gave me these things to use, when he takes out his deck and duel disc. But all that set up for why this is the greatest self-summon ever. On turn 3, he draws and summons himself, since he says it's a serious matter where he must take the battlefield, which involves him just casually but firmly walking into the area where the monsters go, and he also has to walk around the card he set. And then he continues the duel as normal, where the other Dark Scorpions come out, and he has the most perfect hand ever thanks to Pot of Greed, that has a copy of each Dark Scorpion, and Mustering, and the Trap, and also Golem Sentry. The other big thing that really makes anime Don Zaloog memorable to me, especially in this scene, is his voice in the dub. In Japanese, it's a very nice voice, what you'd expect. He has a Sherlock Holmes themed rivalry going on with Chaz. But in the dub, they made him sound like Christopher Walken, and it's a voice choice I can't hear the character without now. 4Kids would always do goofy accents or celebrity imitations for one-off characters, but something about Christopher Walken Zaloog elevated the goofiness that this episode was going for. It was just Yu-Gi-Oh! Regular Wayne Grayson doing the Walken imitation, who does the voices of Joey, Cyrus, Professor Banner, Yusei's dad, etc., but I feel like he had this voice waiting since it's really good. Grayson sounds like he's on the verge of laughing sometimes with this voice.
Good, no one will ever find it mixed in with all that clutter.
Of course. That's it.
Why the keys didn't work? Ha! Not just me. With this mustering of the Dark Scorpions, I can summon all of them.
And I think his summoning line is a lot funnier in English. He says, the one and only Don Zaloog, and when I say one and only, I really mean it, because my children, I am him.
The one and only Don Zaloog! And when I say one and only, I really mean it, because, my children, I am him.
Overall, this episode is funny in any language, the dub happened to work out with the funny voice, and Don Zaloog walking on the field is the best way to go about summoning himself, so I think that's the perfect storm to make him the best monster to do the self-summon. Now, what did you think? Did all these monsters impress you with their summoning methods, or were there some better off staying behind the cards? And who are some of your favorite monsters that did this, whether I discussed them or not? Let me know in the comments. Anyway, thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video.